The man who built a kingdom on innocence died terrified of death, haunted by the very thing he spent his life trying to escape. Walt Disney gave the world magic, but magic was never the point. Control was. And by the time he understood what he'd traded for it, there was no one left close enough to tell. He was born into dust. Missouri, 1901, a father who failed at everything he touched and made sure his sons felt every ounce of that failure. Walt delivered newspapers in the freezing dark before school, bleeding from frostbite, while his father collected the money and offered nothing but silence in return. The cold wasn't the worst part. The worst part was knowing that no matter how hard he worked, it would never be enough. Not for his father, not for anyone. So he stopped trying to please people and started trying to prove them wrong. He drew because drawing was the only place he had power. On paper, he decided what existed. He controlled the story. He controlled the ending. And when the world rejected him, which it did constantly, he didn't soften, he sharpened. Kansas City, flat broke, sleeping in his studio, eating cold beans from a can. He pitched cartoon ideas to everyone who would listen. They all said no, not funny enough, not polished enough, not worth the risk. But here's what they missed. Walt wasn't making cartoons to entertain people. He was building proof that he mattered, that he could make something undeniable, that the boy who bled for his father's approval could become untouchable. Then he created something that worked, a rabbit named Oswald. Audiences loved it. Distributors loved it. For a brief moment, Walt tasted what winning felt like. But he didn't own the rabbit. He'd signed the rights away without reading the fine print, and when he went to renegotiate, they smiled and took Oswald from him. Just like that. They told him he was replaceable, that the character mattered more than the man who made it. He rode the train back to California in silence, his wife next to him, his hands shaking with rage. And somewhere in that humiliation, a mouse was born. Mickey wasn't just a character. Mickey was a declaration of war. Walt would never again put his name on something he didn't own, never again trust a handshake or a contract he didn't write. He rebuilt his studio with one rule: total control. He didn't just want to make cartoons, he wanted to own the camera, the process, the theater, the audience's memory of what they saw. People called it perfectionism. It wasn't. It was fear dressed up as ambition. Fear that if he let go, even for a second, someone would take it all away again. So he didn't let go, not ever. He micromanaged every frame, every line, every sound. Animators worked 100-hour weeks and learned quickly that Walt didn't care about their exhaustion. He cared about the work. Some worshipped him for it, others broke. When they tried to unionize, asking for basic fairness, Walt took it personally. He saw betrayal everywhere. He gave names to the FBI. He testified against his own employees. The man who made children dream of magic spent his afternoons compiling lists of suspected communists in his studio. The irony was lost on him, or maybe it wasn't, and that's what made it worse. But the work was undeniable. Snow White, a full-length animated film. Everyone in Hollywood said it would bankrupt him. They called it Disney's folly. He mortgaged everything, his house, his future, his sanity, and proved them wrong. The film made millions. Audiences wept. Critics called it genius. And Walt stood in the back of the theater, watching, not smiling, already thinking about what came next. Because success didn't bring peace, it brought more pressure, more expectation, more fear that the next project would be the one that revealed him as a fraud. He kept building. Pinocchio, Fantasia, Dumbo, Bambi, each one a technical marvel, each one emotionally devastating, and each one a little piece of Walt carefully hidden inside stories about boys who wanted to be real, elephants separated from their mothers, deer who lost everything. He was drawing his childhood over and over, dressing it up in color and song, selling it back to the world as hope. And the world bought it. They bought it so completely that they stopped seeing the man. They only saw the brand. Disneyland was the final translation of his need into architecture, a place where every brick, every flower, every smile was controlled. He walked the park at night alone, adjusting trash cans and checking paint. His employees called him Uncle Walt, but they feared him. His brother Roy managed the money and begged him to slow down. Walt ignored him. His daughters grew up with a father who was present but absent, famous but unknowable. His wife stayed, but the distance between them widened into something neither could name. He was surrounded by people and utterly alone. And maybe that's what he wanted, because loneliness was safer than intimacy. Intimacy required vulnerability, and vulnerability was the one thing Walt Disney could never afford. The empire grew. Television, theme parks, merchandising. He became a household name, a symbol of American optimism, the man who proved that dreams come true. But the man inside the symbol was exhausted, chain-smoking, drinking, coughing. He was building a new park in Florida, something even bigger, a utopia called Epcot, where he could finally control not just entertainment, but living itself. A city with no crime, no poverty, no chaos, just order, just his vision scaled to the size of human civilization. But his body was failing. The cough turned into something worse, lung cancer, terminal. And suddenly, the man who controlled everything couldn't control the one thing that mattered. He died in December 1966, 2 months after his 65th birthday. The last thing he did was stare at the ceiling tiles of his hospital room, sketching out plans for Epcot in his mind, trying to finish what he started. But there was no finishing. There never is. The company buried him quietly. No public funeral, no grave you can visit. Just a name on a death certificate and an empire that kept growing without him, which is perhaps the coolest part. He made himself irreplaceable and then was replaced. The parks kept opening, the movies kept premiering, the smile never faded. Mickey waved at children who would never know the man who drew him, who bled for him, who gave up everything to make sure a mouse would never die. And here's what we don't talk about. Walt Disney didn't fail. He won, completely, historically. His name will outlive all of ours. But victory didn't save him. It didn't make him happy. It didn't bring his father back or heal the cold mornings or erase the fear. It just gave him more to protect, more to lose, more weight to carry until his body gave out under it. He spent his whole life trying to build a world where nothing bad could happen, and he died anyway, alone in a hospital room, coughing, unfinished. The magic was real, but it was never for him.